Congressman, thank you for joining us this morning. There's been a lot of criticism over who's applying and actually getting some of these loans. Does this bill miss an opportunity to change the language to make sure that the money gets to the businesses that need it most? If you make it available to everyone, everyone's going to go for it.
Yeah, so absolutely not. Look, these are going to small businesses. The average loan is about $200,000. That's Main Street. Most of these companies, the top 4 or 5, are what you would expect. Local retail, construction, healthcare, doctors and others who don't have elective surgeries, restaurants, as you'd imagine, some tech, office spaces as well. There have been, as you noted, some publicly traded companies that took advantage of this. But to put it in perspective, that's 1 out of every 10,000 small business loans are a publicly traded company. The president has said, I think rightly so, look, if you got another way to get capital, get it there, because we're trying to stretch these dollars for our local small businesses. I think that's exactly the right way to go.
But why is that taking advantage? If I ran a chain of small restaurants, or if I owned a boutique hotel with 400 people, then I'd be living the American dream in terms of being a successful small to medium-sized business owner. If they shouldn't apply, what are you doing for them?
No, I think one, we wanted to make sure we moved so quickly, trying to make sure we could inject cash into this cash flow crisis to help our local businesses ride out. More importantly, just keep their workers on the payroll. I think that's exactly what it succeeded to do. Over 1.6 million businesses, saving about 30 million jobs. That is a great start. I think we're having a public debate about, can we stretch those dollars farther? I think, and I think you would too, Stephanie, the washer and dryer in the back of a restaurant is just as important, whether you work for a Ruth's Chris or you work for a local deli. Those jobs are still pretty critical. But the question obviously is, if there doesn't appear to be as much money as you'd like, should we be setting some priorities and asking business to find capital elsewhere if they can do that? I think that's fair. I do think we delayed too long, 16 days, to get this package in place. I think it could have been done, frankly, in 5 minutes. But now it is done. And I think now we've got to take a look at, of all this $2.5 trillion we've sent out in remarkably quick order, what's working, what's not, what else do we need to do to help keep that pressure on the virus? Obviously, it's got to be job number 1. 2, how do we help businesses reopen safely in a healthy workplace as those health conditions permit? And then how do we get people back to work? Because 26 million Americans out of job, in a record amount of time, unfortunately, that's a huge job for us as well. We've got to be able to get them back to work.
But that's what I don't get, because we watched lawmakers and regular everyday folk humiliate and shame businesses like Ruth's Chris for taking the money. But Ruth's Chris did lay off all sorts of waiters and dishwashers, and the money was available to them. So why are we looking at small businesses different than we look at people who go on unemployment? If you and I both lost our jobs and both filed for unemployment, there wouldn't be a public debate over who needs the money more than one another. We would both be eligible for unemployment because we're both out of work. These businesses all laid workers off, and now we've publicly shamed some of them into giving the money back. I don't really understand why the government would create that food fight scenario.
Well, I don't think the government did necessarily. Certainly, I think the public and the media have sort of named and shamed these companies as if they did something wrong. Look, they were eligible. There's no question about it. And we have more lending programs for medium-sized businesses and for larger industries, because we believe workers, regardless of where they work, are pretty important. And we want them to keep working and get those paychecks. Nonetheless, there's been that scrutiny. I think the president's right in asking, not directing, but saying, if you can find other capital, find it somewhere else so that we can stretch these small businesses. I think we can all agree with that.
Should the president do the same for his businesses where he wants a break?
Well, specifically which ones?
His hotels, his golf courses.
Well, I think he ought to play by exactly the same rules as every other business does, just as members of Congress, the cabinet, anyone in America should play by the exact same rules. And I think, too, the workers, again, regardless of who their owner is or what type of business they're at, we should try to protect their job and keep them on the payroll. That's exactly what this has done. I think these new dollars are going to be very helpful. I think the new dollars for the economic injury disaster loans, which a lot of our local businesses have been using as well, is going to be critical. And I do like another round of funding for our hospitals and for testing, because I think that's pretty crucial. We've already devoted $100 billion to our hospitals and healthcare, plus a whole bunch of other things. But obviously, they've lost a lot of revenue. They've been on the front line. Again, this was a package that could have been agreed on in 5 minutes. I'm really frustrated. It was delayed 16 days, but thank goodness it's ready. It's going to be signed. It's going to help.
Without a doubt. Do you think the SBA needs more help? I mean, in a normal year, the SBA gets through about $30 billion. We are now talking about over $500 billion. Does the government need to give more resources to beef up the SBA to get this done? I mean, it's a government agency. It's like asking the Department of Motor Vehicles to put on the Grand Prix.
Stephanie, yes, you hit the target. We've asked them to approve and get out in 14 days as many loans as they've done in 14 years. It's an incredible task. So, yes, in these bills, there is additional funding for staffing at the SBA, at Treasury, at the organizations that need to help to bring this up. We also sent additional dollars in the if you recall, the second bill Congress came together on, we sent $500 million to states' unemployment systems because we knew, as we were trying to help more people who'd lost their jobs, a lot of these state departments, they all do things a little differently. They were going to need new staff, new technology, new help. So, yeah, there is help on the way for the agencies that we are asking them to do the impossible.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.